Welcome to our latest episode of Inclusive Academia. Today we're joined by Krainz-Edison, the director of the ACE program at The Ohio State University.
Yeah, so my name is Karen Krainz-Edison. I'm a licensed independent social worker, and I've been here at the Ohio State University for about 7 years now. My background prior to social work was business. So I worked in an area where I was helping individuals that I hired be able to utilize their strengths on the job, which meant I was providing accommodations. I just didn't know that that's the word for it, right? And then as I moved into social work, as I met more individuals who were autistic, I think one of the things I saw was there weren't a whole lot of services for adults. Littles get a lot of support, but moving into that adult phase, 18 and over, the services are very, very limited. Once I was in my master's program, I learned more about the Neurodiverse Center here at The Ohio State University, which is a academic center for excellence in developmental disabilities. And we wanted to make sure that, I wanted to make sure that it was my opportunity to really learn how to work with our folks. And then I had the opportunity to start our ACE program, which supports our autistic college students, autistic and neurodivergent college students here at Ohio State, as well as our local community college.
Could you please tell us a little bit more about The Ohio State University and the surrounding community of Columbus?
So Ohio State is a part of the Big Ten. So we are almost a small city within the city of Columbus. The city of Columbus is also the state capital. So we really have a vibrant community life, not only here at the campus, but all around in that central Ohio area. We've got majors everywhere from agriculture to zoology at the Ohio State University. And I think that's the nice part about being here is I've got students in a wide variety of majors. Not everyone is going to be a computer science engineer, right? I've got folks who are in history majors, who are in French majors, psychology. Again, I think the advantage of Ohio State being such a large state institution is we've got a lot of resources that are available.
Now, can you please tell us a bit more about the ACE program's partnership with Columbus State Community College?
Yes, absolutely. We work with Columbus State Community College. They have a parallel pathway. So they are really supporting students to get through their first 2 years at that lower community college rate in smaller classes to really help that transition from high school to college, much of what we do here at ACE. But we also found that our students still need that little extra edge when they get there. So we work with students, again, some of them are going to just get their associate degree and others are going to move on to a 4-year degree. So we provide similar services as we would here at The Ohio State University, but we do it on the community college campus. The advantage to that is it's 10 minutes away, so it's very close.
What were some of your goals when you set out to start the ACE program?
When we launched the ACE program, it was launched by a group of graduate fellows, and we really wanted to launch the program not so much in that medical model housing, in psychology, or in education, because we've got those resources out on campus. What we didn't have was that social work background. So we address the barriers that a lot of our students have within the ACE program when they come to college from that social work aspect. So we are looking at person and environment and what are those wraparound supports that we can help them gain while they're at college, right? So we give them that good transition from a very well-developed high school setting and structure, right? They've got everything there that they need. So many natural supports, they don't realize they have natural supports. Then they come to the university where we are trying to, again, help them develop those self-advocacy skills, develop the tools that they need to help them use their strengths and be successful. And then we also want to make sure that we're generalizing those skills and how they're going to use those once they graduate and they get into the workforce. So we've been really fortunate to partner with JP Chase. So not only do we teach them, but we've had anywhere from 9 to 15 students be able to attain internships, summer internships at JPMC that's located about 20 minutes away from our campus. So again, students have had a great opportunity to practice the skills that they've honed here on the college campus and then move that into employment.
About how many students participate in the ACE program?
Since we've launched in 2016, we started with 4 individuals, right? Then we moved slowly to increase, right? Because we wanted to make sure that we were maintaining that high level of support and education all the way through, so that we were offering the same level of services to 4 as we were to 9, and then 11, and then 15, and then 19. And this year we've got 28 students that we're working with. Knowing what our limitations are, because the university does not fund us, we are a separate fee paid program. We know that we have to be able to support all of our salaries, all of our supports. All of our lead facilitators have a cell phone that students can get in contact with them on, right? So we're maintaining their confidentiality by not having it on somebody's personal phone. All of those things, cost us money. So we make sure that we're keeping all of our staffing in alignment with how many folks that we can go ahead and support. So our maximum is probably going to be about 30, 35. And then if there's additional funding from somewhere, maybe a grantor somewhere who has some extra funds that they'd like to do some philanthropic work with us, we could probably take it up to about 40. That being said, we're on a campus of over 50,000 students.
Great. And do you offer any services to Ohio State students who are not part of the ACE program?
So we're taking a very small number. So what we've also done is we've supported some of our students to develop the Autistic Students Union. So they have a student organization now. This is a fully student-run organization. Everyone is neurodivergent or autistic. And we then can provide some additional support because they communicate primarily on a Discord channel. It's a private Discord channel, so very safe. Again, confidential, because people support each other on the channel. And they have a moderator who's very careful about who they're letting in. They have to have a osu.edu account. So again, we try to maintain the security of our folks. But myself, my program coordinator, my clinical counselor, we can go ahead and kind of watch what's going on in the Discord chats. And from there, we can provide some of our knowledge, some of our education, so that we can provide some support to that larger community. Right now, they've only been going for a year, but they've got about 140 individuals that participate actively in that Discord channel. So we're reaching more of the folks who are out there.
How do families learn more about the ACE program, and what does the application process entail?
We start talking to families and students as soon as they contact us, right? So we don't wait to go, oh, nope, you only talk to us when you're a senior. We want to make sure that people have those ideas about what it is that they need to be successful in college well before they get here, so they can start working on some of those skills. But once a student is interested in ACE, we will typically have a short meeting with them just to see, would they be a good fit, at least on the surface, from what we hear from the student and from the family. We'll do some information sessions, but until they are accepted by the Ohio State University, we really can't go into that full intake process because we can't get them into OSU. Now, we've sat down and we've worked with folks on their admission essays. We've helped them through that process of the early acceptance and early application, but we really don't do anything until those acceptance letters have gone out in January or February or March. And that's when we really start working one-on-one with the student.
So after the student has been admitted to OSU, then what happens next?
We do a full biopsychosocial intake. And what that means is we look at the student as a whole. Their biological, what's going on with them medically or psychologically, what's going on with them emotionally, and also within the family system, and then also what goes on, in that larger realm, their community connection, and then we also want to know what their goals are. We hear really fast what the parents' goals are for the student, but we want to make sure that we know what the students' goals are. Sometimes they could be vastly different. Sometimes they're perfectly aligned and then they change over time, but we really want to make this a person-centered process. So we work primarily with the student, but we also do that same biopsychosocial for the parent. So yeah, at that point, once we've done an intake, that biopsychosocial, I sit down with our program coordinator who focuses on executive function. I sit down, also we include our clinical counselor, and we determine what is that fit of that student. Are they a good fit for the Ohio State University? And I'm up front, when we're talking with families in that first little 15-minute or 30-minute phone call, if I get that feeling that OSU is not the right place, I direct them to places like the College Autism Network. I'll direct them to other schools that I know might have that program for them. because we know that the success is going to be when that student fits in. So again, we try to provide a lot of information. But once we've gone through the intake, once we've gone through that evaluation, that internal evaluation of the student, we'll then let the student and the parent know that they've been accepted to the program.
So now that our student has been accepted to OSU and to the ACE program, what happens next?
At that point in time, once they start doing their Buckeye bound visits, they come to campus, whether they're in-state or out-of-state students. We are making sure that whenever they're here on campus, we meet with them for at least an hour or two, whatever they've got the capacity for, because usually, when they come in for some of those campus visits, they keep them really busy. They're going to make good use of all of their time. So it's nice for us to be able to have that extra sit down time where Justin, who does our executive function, can sit down and really work with the student to find out what made them successful in high school, and then start to talk to them about exactly what we do, whether it's the supports that we offer in executive function, whether it is the supports we provide and how we help them connect to learn about assistive technology, right? But we're already starting to share with them how our services will support either their areas of strengths or areas that they need to either develop or find those wraparound systems for. By July, we've done an orientation with all of our students, not just the ones who are first years, whether they're true first year freshmen or whether they're being, transferring in from another school, but we also bring in all of our current students. And that way, there's that mentoring piece that goes on, because we know that mentoring isn't just vertical, it's horizontal, right? So our third and fourth and fifth and sixth year students can learn just as much from freshmen, first year students as vice versa, right? So we want to make sure that we're connecting them early on.
So what happens when our new Buckeye freshmen arrive on campus?
And then the week before courses start, when our students have been accepted, they know they're in the ACE program, they've gone through all their paperwork and the release of information. Once they move onto campus, we want them to be involved in campus activities. So we carve out time around those campus activities to start with how do they navigate campus? How do they get from point A to point B? When we walk their schedule with them, making sure that they understand, how to get from their dorm to their first class, to their second class. When do I eat lunch? Third class, fourth class, right? When do I study? So we really want to make sure that we have that hands-on opportunity. And I think the nice part about the way we operate is we have a very small staff, but we also have a number of graduate students from the College of Social Work, folks in their Masters of Education, as well as licensed professional counseling students. And we bring them in to be our facilitators. So while our clinical counselor, Justin, our executive function focused program coordinator, and myself, while we will develop the plan for the student, the facilitators, who are these graduate students who look a lot like the students that are incoming, right? It's a more natural fit, right? When you see two students walking or two students working in a study session. So it creates a level of comfort for our students, the ACE members, as well as for the facilitators who are graduate students, because they're getting that experience of working one-on-one with individuals, following a set plan, but then they also receive that one-on-one consultation from us, from the staff of the program. So it's really a nice blend.
What are some of the attributes that you feel help ACE students succeed at Ohio State?
So we found that students that have that ability to self-advocate at any level, right? We understand that self-advocacy skill will have to build over time because, their parents have been doing a great job of advocating for them, supporting them through so they get all the services that they need, they get the supports that they need. But again, students don't always know how to ask for that themselves. So students who are, open to hearing about our services versus sitting in the background and not engaging in a Zoom call, or, they're in the back of the room. We can tell when the student is in the back of the room because they're overwhelmed and they're on their phone. But, we can see that there's some expression. They'll pick their head up when they hear something that they like, and then they go back to whatever it is that they're using to self-soothe or to calm themselves, right? And then there's the students that are, just absolutely, they don't want to do this. We certainly take the time to talk with those students, usually individually and away from families, to help them understand that, in college, they have to ask for help. It's not given to them. And again, we look for those buy signs. Are the students willing to accept that help? The hardest students for us to work with are the ones who think they can do it all and don't let us know when something's going on, right? And again, we use social work, we use counseling, we use motivational interviewing, but there are going to be those students that just, that resistance is there. And maybe it's because they're just not ready for college yet. Sometimes having a gap year is a good thing. We also look for students who can do those basic skills, right? So, are they taking care of their own hygiene? Yeah, mom or dad might have to wake them up in the morning, but do they pretty much get from there on their own? Are they taking their meds? If they take medication, are they taking their medications on their own? Do they self-initiate their homework? So those are some of the things that we look for, because we know self-initiation is tough, but if they can at least self-initiate in a few areas, we know that over time, they'll understand the importance of self-initiating in other areas. Do they do their own laundry? Because coming to campus and trying to figure out how you and 600 of your closest friends are going to do laundry within 2 dorms and a very small laundry room, that's just executive functioning nightmare in itself, right? Figuring out that planning and that organizing that goes along with it. So again, we look for those independent life skills. What is a student doing on their own, or what are they willing to learn how to do, right?
Are there any aspects of the ACE program that you're particularly proud of?
So I think what I'll kind of brag about is our connection with that clinical counseling piece, because we know our students come in with co-occurring conditions, right? It's not just the autism, or not just part of one facet of neurodivergence. It's multiple pieces that tie together, and we never worry about which came first, right? It's just a student is who they are, and they have multiple conditions. So after I spent my first year and a half doing a lot of crisis counseling and a lot of case management, we brought in an individual. Erin Harris is our licensed independent social worker who does all of our clinical counseling. She also works with all of our graduate level facilitators who are focused on counseling. And she works with all of our students, whether it's once a month, twice a month, sometimes it can be up to 8 times a semester, to really help that student understand what's going on with them, whether it's, through therapy or through counseling, or, again, being able to help the facilitators work with the student in a way that can help their growth and development.
The ACE program provides a lot of support in terms of academic planning and executive functioning. Can you please touch on both of these areas?
Right. We also will have our facilitators, the lead facilitator, who again typically is a graduate student, will work with their students once a week individually for planning and organizing. So this is really just looking at that big picture. What's coming due in the next couple of weeks? Most students want to know what's due tomorrow, right? So we're starting to do that forward planning. We want to make sure that they understand that, an assignment isn't just one piece, there's multiple pieces to it. So again, generalizing what a project might be, what project management might be once they get to employment. So that session can last between an hour, hour and a half. We go through, we'll look at our students' electronic classrooms. We'll go through their syllabus so that we help them determine what's the best way for them to keep track of assignments other than just having it pop up electronically, because we know that professors don't always load that online course, right? So sometimes they're great on the calendar and sometimes they're not. Plus, it doesn't teach you how to plan in advance. It just tells you what's due tomorrow. So we'll make sure that we are helping them utilize whatever planning tool they want to use, whether it is iCal, whether it is Outlook. At the university here, we use Outlook. So Outlook is really an easy way for us to, help the student utilize a tool that probably is going to be used when they get to employment as well. But if they choose to use Google Calendar or iCal or whatever it is that they're using, a paper planner, we want to make sure that they are independently doing that planning. So again, that's all worked within that first hour session, and it can be longer. The second session primarily is used to either make those connections for the self-advocacy work that the student has to do. Do they have to contact a professor? Do they have to talk with the accessibility office because maybe their accommodations aren't right. Do we need to talk with an RA in a dorm, a resident assistant, right? We'll also go to the different academic support. So that coaching session is really pretty flexible. We can even use it as a study session if a student is having a hard time on an assignment.
Can you please describe the tutoring and other academic services offered by the university?
The one thing that we don't do, Matt, is we don't tutor, right? We are all social workers. We write very well. However, we're not mathematicians. We are certainly not engineering folk. So what we want to make sure is our students understand how to look for the supports that they need. So we, again, in a very person-centered way, help that student find the resources that they need. And if it is uncomfortable for them, or there's that fear factor of going somewhere for the first time, again, our facilitators will always go with the student. We do hold study sessions that are facilitated. Typically, an undergraduate social worker will be doing their field placement with us, and they will do those group study sessions.
And how about supporting students' social skills and having some fun?
We also have some group activities that we call Friday Connections. We were fortunate to be able to get a grant from the Columbus Foundation, which is one of our larger philanthropic groups here in Columbus, Ohio. And they gave us a grant so that we can help our students learn how to build social capital. Networking is hard when you're put into a group and said, here, network. What does that mean? So we developed a series of events and activities that the students can participate in. These are things that college students would typically do. We don't go to a football game. That's a little overstimulating, but we do look at hockey games. We look at the soccer matches. How do we get the students to attend these as a group so they learn that social networking piece at their own pace and at their own comfort level? I think that's the one thing. Again, we're doing that person-centered. So if there's a student who they're going to primarily be virtual, then how do we help them join those virtual events that we do? But again, thanks to the foundation, the Columbus Foundation's donation and grant that they provided us, we have done things like gone to a paint and sip where students can create their own artwork on canvas. And typically, yes, they will, serve wine or beer or alcoholic beverages. Well, you know what? A lot of these places also have mocktails now, where they serve something that looks like a cocktail, but there's no alcohol in it, or they'll have soft drinks. So again, our 21 and overs get to experience that being in that social setting. They're not drinking alcohol, but they're learning how to experience managing themselves in that kind of a situation. We've gone to the Gateway Cinema to have the students, again, pick different movies to go see. And then we don't just say, okay, session's over, we're done. They're sitting around and they're engaging with the movies. And it's funny because a lot of our students are like, yeah, well, I really don't want to do that. But they come to the session and they're the ones staying later and wanting to, our facilitators are wanting to go home. And the students are sitting down and talking because they watched the movie that's within their special interest. And now they found people who have their same special interest. So they're finding their folks, they're finding their people. So I think that's one of the things that our Friday Connection does, as well as those group study sessions, because to be quite honest, the first 20, 30 minutes of any of those study sessions is social time. People are talking about what's gone on, they're venting. One student will help another because they've already taken a class, so they talk about a professor, and then people settle in to the coursework that they're doing or the assignments that they're working on. But again, we've got that person in there who can facilitate conversations, who can help with that problem solving, or if need be, can step outside with somebody so that they can help them, get regulated. So if they're at the point of dysregulation's kicked in and now, they can't focus and they can't get their work done. And that's a nice part about having that social work background for all of our facilitators.
What are some of the housing options available for ACE program students?
So at Ohio State, we do not have separate dorms, except that there are some dorms that typically are for first-year students. However, because of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, if a student has a documented medical need for a single room, instead of being in a dorm with multiple people, that is absolutely possible. So we encourage our families, even before they come to Ohio State, to talk to their accessibility offices or talk to their housing offices about what documentation is needed if their student needs that single room. We even have single room with single bath, right? But there are fewer of those. So, we really want to make sure that if a student can utilize the common bathrooms on a floor, that if that's an experience that they can navigate, then we try to have them navigate that, right? Because it also provides at least a little bit of connection with people. And again, our community bathrooms are very separate. I mean, they're your own private pod. It's not like the old days where they had this big long row of showers and sinks in front of it. They don't do that anymore. So that's the good news. But for those folks who do need that accommodation, we help them get the letter, whether it's something, if we've been working with a student, as independent licensed social workers, if we're providing counseling or support, we can write those letters, but we also know that there's probably a psychologist or a general practitioner at home that can write a better letter that will state why that student needs that single housing. Otherwise, what we do in the ACE program is when a student asks us, so we don't just volunteer, but when a student asks us to either talk with a roommate, to talk with one of their RAs or with their building manager about some of the things that might be challenging them. But yeah, we'll do trainings for any staff member anywhere across the campus, whether it's in the dorms or in classrooms. And then again, when the student asks, we would negotiate with their roommate or with someone in the building.
You placed a lot of focus on crisis management and mental health there at Ohio State. Can you please touch on that?
Well, I always thought the first person I would hire would be someone who would work on career. No, crisis management and mental health. That was far more the priority, because if we can't get them through college, the career piece doesn't make much of a difference, right? We need to make sure that they're mentally healthy and they're equipped to be able to navigate the challenges of life.
What type of career counseling and support is available to ACE students?
So again, because of my prior business background, I did a lot of hiring, a lot of HR work. I'm primarily the person who provides the career coaching. And again, I use a lot of the basics, right? We utilize, different measurement tools. I use the Holland survey a lot because I can talk with the individual so that they understand why these questions are being asked. I think that's what a lot of our students need to know, the why. What's in it for them? Why do they have to do this? Is there a reason? Oh, there's a reason. Great, let's do it. But I'll work with them. And then what I'll also do is coach them on how to work with our career services. This last semester, it's been great because we had an individual who had been doing a lot of work at the other Ohio university. He was able to give us a semester internship of being able to provide one-on-one and group counseling to our folks seeking that additional career support. And he did some training with some of our career counselors, which was great. And it was done in a way to where our career counselor was training our students, but he then was sharing information so that the students understood the career counselor better, so that the career counselor then started changing their approach to how they were talking with the students. So it was a really nice holistic piece. So hopefully we can learn from that and do a little bit more of that next semester. So our career counselors who are part of the Ohio State University are also providing that same kind of service that we can provide to them. Again, communicating appropriately, talking about things like accommodations, how to ask for them, how to prepare for interviews, and again, what level of masking is needed, because we know our students mask. I mean, that's how they got this far for most case. And they've learned how to fit into those social situations. But in college, there's so few times for them to have that downtime where they can recover and recharge their batteries. So we're trying to help them understand that when you do it this way and you're your authentic autistic self, A, it's going to relieve some of that pressure on you, and B, this is a good time to be your authentic autistic self.
What are the costs to families for the ACE program?
So we are at this point in time $4,500 a semester. So that's $9,000 for an academic year. So our parents are paying another tuition on top of tuition. We look at this as being more of, it's not an insurance policy, right? We can't guarantee that the student is going to be able to do every single thing, right? I mean, there are going to be assignments missed. There are going to be classes missed, but we are providing an assurance with an A, or we're ensuring with an E, that the student has all the tools that they need to be successful, right? And that we're there to catch things before it gets to a critical stage. Now, again, the student has to be forthcoming with us. So if they're hiding or they're not meeting their sessions, that's a different story, right? Then we can't do our job to help them. But for the students who are cooperative and they follow our plan for them, again, we've had some really super successful students. We just had 4 students graduate for winter, for our fall graduation that happened in December. Again, but with that $4,500 per semester, your student is getting anywhere between 4 and 10 hours of supports based on sometimes what they choose, right? They're going to have 4 hours of supports because that's like the base, right? But when they choose those additional group activities, when they choose the Friday connection, when they choose the group study sessions, that's where it's going to bump up to those 10 hours. Plus they get Erin. Erin Harris is our clinical social worker, right? So she is going to be able to be involved with that student. So I think that piece of having Erin involved up to 8 times a semester is invaluable. Plus I think I said it earlier, all of our lead facilitators have a program cell phone. So our students have contact with us during the week between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. If their facilitator can't answer the call, it comes to one of our staff members. And then on the weekend, within 3 hours, we'll get back in contact with them. So that becomes that piece of where they're not reliant on us, but instead of calling mom and dad right away, they have somebody that they can say, hey, let me bounce this off of you.
That's great. And to wrap things up, can you think of an example of a great teachable moment that typifies your approach to helping students?
And I had a student once that got stuck in the middle of our oval. I mean, our oval is a beautiful green grassy area, lots of sidewalks intersecting, that is surrounded by gorgeous trees, huge trees, and very large buildings. The student got to the middle and got stuck, and all they could see was trees and grass, and they couldn't figure out what direction they were going in. And instead of calling home to mom, they sent me a text and said, I'm stuck. So my first thing was send me a picture. Send me a picture. Look anywhere and send me a picture. Sent me a picture. I called them. I knew exactly where they were. And it was nice because in some situations I could have talked to them through where they needed to go. But in this particular case, I was able to go down, meet the student, and then have that walk with them so that they understood that, oh, this is where I got stuck. I needed to keep walking forward. Oh, there's my door, right? So I help them problem solve and again, maintain that dignity, right? Again, that dignity of risk. I could have said, oh, here's where you go, and just had them do it on their own, but being able to help them naturalize and normalize the situation and then walk with them to help them, again, regulate themselves so that once they got past those trees and those big buildings, they realized, oh, good, I was on the right path. And I could reinforce that they were already on the right path. They were going the right way. They just got stuck.
Thank you to Karen Krainz-Edison and the ACE program at The Ohio State University. For more information on the ACE program, check out the URL below. And remember to subscribe and leave a comment for Inclusive Academia.